Hi guys, welcome back. Okay, if you've been feeling a little bit unmotivated, yes, check.
It's fair.
Uninspired, and
get
perhaps like all this COVID chaos just has you feeling a little bit discouraged, it's time for us together to get unstuck.
Like you wake up and you go, we have to do this again.
Again? Are we doing this again?
Yeah. Okay, you're looking at James Robilotta. He is an author, speaker, coach, and entrepreneur, and he wants to help you change your life for the better and maybe make you laugh a little bit too.
On my senior prom, I dislocated my right knee dancing to Shania Twain's Man, I Feel Like a Woman. Thank you, thank you. Now, what you didn't hear about that is that occurred during dinner.
Today, James joins us live on Skype with some tips to help you rewrite your quarantine story and get unstuck. James, we welcome you, and separately, we welcome your beard.
Friends, we are excited to be here. Thank you so much for having us.
That is so good. James, okay, so you have a background in improv and stand-up comedy, which I do think is just immediately makes you look at the world with a little bit more delight than the rest of us, because you just observe the little amusing things, and you work on teaching workshops to people. What do you want people to leave feeling like after they've experienced some time with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's interesting how we as human beings build barriers for ourselves that aren't actually there. We tell ourselves like, well, I want to do this, but I should probably do this first. And we do that kind of stuff. And so in my workshops, I help people get out of their own way and hold them accountable to the lives they say they want to live.
Yeah, we are telling ourselves a story all the time.
And it is so often filled with lies and negative self-talk that just limits us from what we really want to do with where our values are located. All right, let's talk about rewriting the quarantine story. We're all in this together. We've heard that many times, but some of us really need a little kickstart to really feel like we can make the most of this time. We find ourselves in patterns, and you say patterns are for what, James?
Patterns are for quilts.
Oh, boo to patterns. So now routine can be good, but you're talking about patterns in a different way. Explain this.
Yeah, exactly. There are some great patterns. For example, I mean, our body is systematically designed to create patterns. If I told you I wanted you put your toothpaste on your toothbrush in the opposite direction tomorrow, you'd be like, I don't even know which way I normally do it. Because your body just knows how to do it, even if it's in its sleepy state. And some of the patterns are great because they allow our brains to multitask and stuff like that. But there's these other patterns, often patterns of thought, that hold us back. I know, for example, myself, I'm not good at taking compliments because I don't believe I deserve them. Oh. That's a story I tell myself, right? And so there's so many individuals out there that are doing the same thing of like, well, I want to do that, or I could do that, but I'm not cool enough, I'm not funny enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not hot enough, I'm not rich enough, I'm not whatever enough. And it's each one of these little stories that we tell ourselves that are bricks that we carry, but I think we owe ourselves the ability to live a lighter life.
Well, you also can give yourself so much power if you say, well, yeah, I can take control over this. I can take control over my habits and my happiness, that, you know, you're not waiting for someone to just show up and give you those things on a silver platter. I think we get into so many bad, we get into bad relationships, we get into unfulfilling jobs, all sorts of stuff, because we're waiting for those things to show up and like tell us what we're supposed to do when we really have the power to do it ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. What I first need people to do is just stop shoulding on yourselves.
I'm glad you said it, James. James, listen, this came up last night in our meeting, and that phrase was said, and I thought, oh, what did you just say? And then she said it slower. Now, you enunciated very nicely, stop shoulding on yourself. Explain what this means.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we always are saying things like, well, I should do that, or I should do that, or I could do this, or whatever. But while we're saying should, we're actually doing nothing. And should equals shame, right? Because if we're saying should all the time, then we're saying, well, I'm not whatever enough. And so let's start to rewrite the way that we talk about what is possible in our lives. Let's take out some of those shoulds. You mentioned that I do improv. In improv, we say yes and.
I love that.
Yes, absolutely, right? We're constantly trying to build what is possible. And so right now, what we have to be figuring out is we need to rewrite the way that we talk to ourselves, because the way that we talk to ourselves is holding us back. So instead, let's check in with other individuals and let's say, hey, I've talked about doing X, Y, and Z. Do you think I could do that? Because a lot of times other people see our greatness before we see it. And so who are those mentors that you could check in on? What are those little things that you can start? So many times people are afraid to start because our start doesn't look like our finish, and therefore we're like, it's messy.
Yeah.
And we don't allow ourselves to start to move, and instead we stay stuck in inaction.
So what do you do? Because I know that a lot of people, I would hazard a guess that 100% of people who just heard what you said about shoulding, and then that equating to some level of shame in all sorts of moments all throughout the day, and it robs us of the present moment, and it robs us of the potential joy that we can experience. So we know that that's a problem. What's something practical that you do if later tonight you have one of those should moments? What can we do to disarm that and instead be okay with where we are right now?
Yeah, well, the first part is to catch it, right? Let's catch some of these speech patterns that are holding us in these same cycles. So that's the first thing. I think the next thing is that we need to make a plan to start, because it's not like, well, I'm going to lose 30 pounds. All right, tomorrow I'm getting P90X. I'm doing box jumps onto my countertops.
He's talking to us on purpose.
Yeah, this is the exact kind of thing that we do, James. That hit a little close to home, but continue.
Mea culpa. So it's not just those. It's not like this big grandiose thing. Instead, what is the first step that you can do? What is the research that you can do? What are the, like, for example, there's a lot of people I know that want to be speakers like I am, and they're like, well, I got to write my book first, and then I got to do this. No, you got to come up with an idea first. And then you have to trust that your idea is good enough. And so it's starting those little thoughts, writing them down, and being like, what if I did do this? What would that look like? I know it sounds a little cheesy, but we're in Minnesota. We love cheese.
That's right. Lean into it. I think that all of this stuff, there's something, and you know this because you're a motivational speaker, you lead workshops. There is this woo-woo aspect that people look at and say, oh gosh, whatever. However, if you like use your own sort of mental sieve and figure out what's the real good stuff, there's a lot of good stuff here. And to poo-poo it all and just say, oh, it's woo-woo, it's fluffy, just isn't true.
Yes, absolutely. You deserve to be in every single space that you walk into. A lot of people suffer from imposter syndrome. I know I do this. I suffer from, like, well, I had a speech one time in front of a whole bunch of PhD wielding doctoral candidate individuals, and I'm over here like, hi, I didn't do well in college. But I knew that I had something to teach them. I couldn't teach them about what they were experts on, but there was something that I was an expert on. There was something that you are an expert on.
You're right. James,
so let us lean in.
That's so good. Thank you so much,
come
James.
back on our show
you
sometime.
And your beard are always welcome. That was very nice. Make sure you come together. You're a team.
And here's the best part, James. We can tell you this, that after doing 8 weeks worth of Skype interviews and things like this, you have had the best audio quality, and for that reason alone, you're invited back. So thank you, James.
Yes.
Really, really great. We appreciate having you on. We posted these tips all up on our website. You can see it at twincitieslive.com, along with a link to buy a copy of James's book. It's called Leading Imperfectly.
He is also hosting a virtual event called Living Imperfectly Live on May 16th, and all those details are on our website, twincitieslive.com. What a treat to meet